Okay, so hello everyone, good evening. It's evening 7 p.m. in my country, my city, and you might be joining from other areas, but here we are to talk about your Agile, Scrum, project management related queries and basically focus on some of the certification related queries. The idea is pretty simple. I'm assuming you might be connecting with our salespeople, support individuals to understand which particular program you should go forward with, or you might have attended our recent agile programs, Scrum Master, or say Leading Safe, or any other project management program. And you may have some follow up questions, maybe a follow up question about the concept or about the certification and career path itself. So if you fall under those category and if you have those kind of questions, then here we can discuss. You just can type your query in your chat area. If you are watching us on LinkedIn, you can put it as a comment wherever you see this video. And if you're on YouTube, it's pretty easy. You put it in the comment on the same video. It will reach us here. And then we talk about your queries. I share my idea, whatever I think from my perspective. You can add your concept, thought process on top of it, and probably can help you in making the right decision. So here we are, and I am waiting for some of the queries to come in before we can start talking about them. Now, in the meantime, queries are coming. I can give some updates. Yeah, probably some of you may want to know. So last weekend, we did two face-to-face training. Even doing face-to-face training is becoming an update now. I think 2 years ago it was a norm, but now it's a big thing. So we did Certified Scrum Master in Delhi, and we also did Leading Safe program in Delhi. Same hotel, but it was quite a good experience. We could uh, run, collect people, facilitate networking as well as certification at the same time. So we have started it now in Delhi. We did earlier in the Bangalore, and we are planning few more in the month of December as well as in January. So if you are in Delhi or in Bangalore uh, or in a surrounding area, Noida, Gurgaon, then you may want to join our face-to-face classroom programs. Eisenbridge.com can help you in getting more details. I'm good. Thank you, Moshin, for asking. Yeah. Great. So this is how you can comment. Yeah. We see a comment coming from YouTube. So yeah, welcome to the session. So that was one update. Maybe in the meantime, if we have some more, PMI is working on revisiting their PMI Yellow Choice program. Some of you who are part of our PMP classroom may want to know that from January onwards, you will get an updated version, more or less aligned with the previous version, but little bit more organized, more aligned towards newer version of PMBOK guides, but more or less the content remains online because it's again following the exam content outline. So we have a latest updated version coming in as well. That also gives us a confidence that, okay, we are going in a right direction with our exam content outline because the new content is also more or less in line with the previous content. It has 6 lessons now. Earlier we had 5, and little bit of reformatting of the last lesson. Something comes first and something remains towards the end. So that thing will be available from January onwards. Okay. Okay, I have a question, a relatively bigger one. So let me read it. Yeah. So I have started with the Scratch project. It's a banking mobile app. Yeah. Project, and would like to ask you how should I guide team to have a reference and baseline story, because right now solution design is being created by our tech lead and mobile lead is working on screen components. I have user stories in Jira from my product owner, but I'm not sure how would we estimate, because after design phase actual work will start and we have to start sprinting. Yeah, and we have asked to start sprint planning. So one thing is that yes, you may want to estimate, and more the uncertainty, the more error in the estimate. Yeah. So don't equate estimate with very accurate forecast of your release milestones, delivery milestones, those accuracies will improve. And over a period of time, when you improve on it, you improve your accuracy. So now if you are in a first sprint or second sprint, your accuracy is expected to be little low. Now, if you are working in the environment where stakeholder need little bit high level projection, you can use whatever estimation technique works for you, which helps you in giving high level projection. Not necessarily you need to wait for stories to be created and estimated and team need to start working on it. Maybe team may not be able to even do a story pointing for such kind of high level requirement. You may need to do some amount of forecast. As we used to do in our previous project management way, we can do a rough order of magnitude estimate and you can use whatever makes sense for your project. Yeah, that's the first thing to start with. Afterwards, when you have a set of small requirements, big requirements in front of you, and out of those small requirements, some of the requirements are going to be planned in upcoming iteration sprint, and those are the requirements which you are more focused about. Those need to be well estimated, at least the one which are coming in, and maybe they also have an error because it's the first iteration or sprint. Especially if the team is new, then it is going to be having more error. If the team has been working on some other initiative before and now they are moving to another initiative, then they don't have a problem. They understand how to analyze a complexity, how to look at the things, because they have their own mechanism or ways of working. But if you are bringing new people together, they have never worked in this space, they have never worked in agile, then we can say, that could be a challenge. So you bring those people together, let them identify various small requirements, and one of the simplest ways we may just put a rank, which one is the easiest, which one is complex, out of these small requirements which we are planning to do in the next sprint or iteration. And you may give a smallest a number, maybe a 1 number or 2 number. Many times I find people giving smallest a 2 number or sometimes even 3 number, because they believe the smaller than this is yet to be discovered. Yeah, it's a small, but we will get more smaller than this. If you have that sense, you may start with 2 rather than 1, or maybe a 3, because you expect more small things will come as you go forward. And once you have one sprint iteration done, you understand how things are done, then you can do your other pointing as well. You can have other numbers as well, which are matching there. Now, what is the objective of doing story point estimation, especially at this stage? To identify that you should not be working on a story which may not get completed in a sprint. So if you achieve that objective, I think for a first sprint, you are good. Yeah, because if you do the whole estimation, your error accuracy, error will be high only because it's a limited information. Forecasting release dates based on first level estimate, that too with a new team is going to be a challenging. So you can use some other media for doing that. But for your first iteration, you should have some mechanism to ensure that, okay, we can at least identify something is bigger to fit in a one sprint. Yeah, and we can identify in such a way so that it helps us in identifying how much we can plan in a given sprint. Again, you may be wrong by 20-30%, and that error you should learn from, do a retrospective, improve, and then move for the second iteration or sprint. But if your stakeholder needs some other information, I think it's not necessary to see from the story pointing point of view and find that information here. You can use your other means to find out, like expert judgments, some senior executive putting their idea. But those things are error prone. But yeah, anything you are estimating here is an error prone. So that's my advice, probably. Yeah, and you can do your follow-up sharing here, and then we can talk here. Okay, so we have a question. Does a service delivery manager can become a Scrum Master? So I have seen in our customer base, many service delivery teams moving towards agile ways of working. They may call them still a service delivery manager in some cases, where they start using extensively Kanban-oriented processes, maintaining SLAs and all. But yes, work is coming and going. Many times when these kind of service teams starts integrating with some product teams as well, the organization may start rebranding these service delivery manager as a Scrum Masters also. So the idea or a role or a focus of a Scrum Master, like facilitation, mentoring, coaching, impediment removal, working with the stakeholders, ensuring that we all have a common understanding of various matrices, remains the same. What might be different, which is related to our previous question as well, understanding of little high level items like user stories, facilitating team to discover stories in a small vertical pieces of requirements, working with the stakeholders as well as the development team to come up with some estimation and forecasting. That part may be lacking in a service delivery system, maybe because the involvement of work is based on small work items which passes through there here. Yeah, so that's something here. So Amok, I am not using normalization of story points where I said that. So that's the whole thing you can focus on. Yeah, that's a service delivery. Okay, so quick question. If the stakeholders want to make a change, add a new story in the middle of the sprint as a Scrum Master, how can I facilitate this change? So see that situation at that point in time. See, these kind of situations cannot be predicted and have a default workflow for it. You can't just say, okay, if this will happen, I will do this. At that point in time, what is the criticality of that change? Is it a really change, or it's just a clarification in your ongoing user story? Or is it something which has to happen because of that, because of if you miss that, you have a high stake at hand. So based on a situation at hand, we need to involve the right stakeholders and work with them. That's the whole idea, to come up with movement. Yeah, that's the summary of working with our in sprint challenges. Now, from a Scrum way of working, you can say that, yeah, you should not bring changes, but at the same time, the changes means change in the sprint goal. So the Scrum is pretty high level in that. You should not change your goal, but you can change the details, which means that now it depends upon how do you define your goal. Are you defining your goal at a higher than user story level? Then you can do something switching in the user stories as well to achieve it. If you are defining goal at a user story level, then you can do a changes at the acceptance criteria level, provided they are accepted by the product owner, the stakeholders or a product owner and the team, because user story is negotiable. So the idea here is we need to work together to find out how this change will help the team and what are the costs associated with this change. Cost, not necessarily a money cost alone. Things like, okay, what kind of waste it will generate, what kind of replanning we have to go through, because we already did a sprint planning, we detailed few things, some user stories got moved forward, and if you are replacing them, removing them, then it is creating some set of waste. Yeah, so we need to explore those waste point of view, wastes as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's a change. The follow-up question related to the estimation in the banking app. Let's see, we focus here. Yeah. So if I am allowed, I have another question. Suppose one epic is having two stories and one story creation of a bank statement is required, but the client has not provided the statement logo, color format, template, but template can be worked upon in this sprint and this release. And if it will provide after first release, which will be the targeting at an epic level. So I have a suggested to do and complete both user story for this epic, and we can deliver in the first release. Okay, I am not clear about your question. Probably you are still typing because I see and dot dot. Yeah. So not sure. In the meantime, I take the another question. Yeah. Okay, so people sector, please, can you list the chapter, stakeholder communication, procurement, resources? Okay, so I am understanding this question is related to the PMP exam preparation, and we are saying that in a people domain, in the PMP exam, in the people domain, which all areas I should focus on. So from project management space, in a way, you can say that your PMBOK 6 or PMBOK 7. So PMBOK 6 has a focus on stakeholder communication and resource management. So these are the three things which are too much interlinked with people. There are others. There is always an influence of a people, but these three knowledge areas were more involved. In case of Agile, the PMBOK 7 way of working, we still have a people focus, which is stakeholder and team And in a space of planning, the communication, other things will come. But yeah, the two performance domains, which are stakeholder and team, are clearly coming here. Yeah, so that's a focus area. Now, other than that, if you have been through our PMI LO choice content, lesson 1 and lesson 4, they are the critical people domain focused area. So it's more about understanding the servant leadership in a PMP exam. It's more about focusing on facilitation, conflict management, coaching, mentoring, teaching. It's all about focusing on developing people in order to get the product released. So say whenever you are working as a project manager, you always interact with people, be it a team or a stakeholder. If you are just working with a Excel file and you are creating a report, that could be a process. But as soon as you start explaining that report to someone and the person has a clarification, feedback, and you are working on them, you move to the people domain. So if I am talking about, if anything, like even if I am talking about a change or a risk, if the risk is getting discussed between two people, it will become a people domain. Yeah. But if the risk is getting documented in a risk register, it will become a process domain. So all the knowledge area has an influence as soon as the people interaction comes into the picture. So yeah, in order to develop that understanding, the idea of task list in the PMP exam, you have a PMP exam content outline, you have a task list which you can focus on, and focus on primarily the facilitation, leadership, developing people, and resolving conflicts. So that's a thing. Okay, now I take that. So I have suggested to complete the both user story in the epic, and we can deliver in the first release. And once we have a template, we can separate epic and add new story to track the work and integrate template for the work. Okay, so what I'm understanding is that I try to understand the question before I probably comment in. And again, it's a comment. You may have better ideas. So we have a big requirement, and this requirement, you are using the word epic for it. And this requirement is getting divided into two user stories. Yeah. And I understand one user story has a dependency, which is not yet ready. So the plan is that we work on a one user story and then wait for another dependency get released in the next iteration or next release, and then work on the next user stories. We keep the epic open for some duration and then we release it. Yeah, that's a one alternative you are exploring. The second alternative you are exploring, is it possible I remove the dependency part from the epic one and I create a separate story out of it, and then I release the epic one in the first iteration or a first release itself, and then I do the separate stories separately. Yeah, I hope I am getting your question this way. Now, and this is some way related to the another question also, which is MVP and other stuff coming in here. Now, what is the intent of release? Is this intent of release is meant for end user consumption? We need to see when that functionality is ready for end user consumption. If something is missing there, it may not be ready for end user consumption. If the intent of this release is to provide feedback, learn, and show something so that people can get a better idea, then the sooner we do it, the better it is, because we need to reduce the feedback cycle. Now, it is not mandatory to watertight epics, that epic has a 3-story, and when the 3 stories are done, where epic is moved. Not usually this way people use it. The epics are used just to have a high level requirement, and as soon as you start splitting the epic in a way loses the intent. I was a big requirement, but now I am 4 requirement. So you don't necessarily remember that there was a big requirement which has a child of 4 requirement. You not necessarily maintain that hierarchy all the time. You focus on, as one item gets done, you take that appropriate feedback, you meet the definition of done, and you complete that cycle. But now the completion of the cycle does not necessarily mean business releases, because the business release should meet the business expectation. Yeah. So my recommendation is, yes, you should focus on reaching to a feedback cycle as soon as possible. See who all are ready to give a feedback on that amount of work which you have done. Yes, we need to create stories which are independent in nature. So the way you said, that dependency should be put somewhere else, so that you have a story which is invest, at least in a current sprint, and you should be focusing on completing story one by one. Yeah. So hopefully I understood your question, and something I shared makes sense, but let's see if we have coming in there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so if the deliveries are tracked at an epic level from the stakeholder, then we need to negotiate the stakeholders and explain them the intent behind it. But if they have a mechanism or a reason of tracking it because of business completion, then probably you won't be able to do. Yeah, because they may want to see, okay, this is some business functionality, and only when this business functionality is done, we want to complete it. Then probably they don't want to do that. Yeah, so we need to negotiate. Nothing, in my view, there is no rule around it. Okay, so my suggestions, and we can definitely talk and see how we move forward. Okay, so what is the relationship between feature and MVP in a release plan in a Scrum project? Are MVP made from features, or bunch of user stories becomes an MVP? Is it or even if it is not from the same feature? So it depends how you want to use it. In a yesterday also I was speaking about it when I was giving the Instagram live. So one thing is, the feature is not a always a standard term used in the Scrum way of working. So if you talk about Scrum, you can say you can work without feature, you can work without user story. The only thing you need is a product backlog and product backlog items. And items could be anything. Items, you may call them feature, you may call them user story, you may call them spikes, you may call them enablers, defect, improvement ideas, or all of them. Yeah. So your product backlog can have all those things. So that's thing. Now, what is MVP? The idea of MVP is, again, many people use MVP in a different way. So we need to understand what person means by MVP. Sometimes people mean MVP that, oh, we need to do something as a first version so that our customer starts using it, and then we will gradually build it. Yeah. But that is, in a general language, is not called MVP. That could be a minimum marketable feature, minimum business increment we want to give to the stakeholder so that they start using it. That's the idea. So, but it might be called MVP in some cases. But what is MVP? The MVP is, we want to give something to the stakeholder user so that based on their uses, consumption, outlook, we can know, are we going in a right direction. So it could be a super less functionality thing, but should be sufficient so that user touch it. It should not be something just given a presentation alone, because presentation alone will not give you the desired feedback. So it should have something to touch, work with. At the same time, you should not be spending too much time with it, because the more time you spend, the delay you are making in your collecting feedback. So we want to add some set of functionality, which will be a part of your product backlog items only. You call them user story, features, whatever it is. And the stakeholder, the stakeholder and development team understand that out of possible functionality, something we need to do. And something, it's not necessarily end user functionality also. Some set of the items we need to develop, and we need to create an increment which will be useful for learning. Now, it's possible you may scrap that increment after learning, and you may build a new increment afterwards, or it is possible that you further augment the same increment, same set of code, because you are building on top of it. So it's like something you are doing to validate your value hypothesis and growth hypothesis. So what is a value hypothesis? When you think about a product, you think that people will find it useful. But how do you really know? Especially if there is no proven benchmark for that particular product uses. So you want to validate, am I really adding the value? The growth hypothesis is more about, when people will use it, they will spread the word and we will grow by word of mouth. Are they really, even if they are using it, is it something they want to use it secretly, or they want to use it publicly? So we want to validate our value and growth assumptions, hypothesis, and for that we want to put something in the market. And based on that learning, we redesign, rework, and we work on it. Now it's possible that we decide to scrap the product if we don't see a value. It's possible that we need to reposition our vision and customer segment based on what we learn. It is possible that our assumptions initially were right and we continue with that. So depending upon what happens, you decide what do you do with your MVP. So hopefully I'm not confusing, and that's what I can share here. Okay, so we have a question. The main purpose of dashboard is for metrics visualization, but even in the Scrum board, we can check them in a reports. But what is the main advantage of the dashboard? So the idea of dashboard is that you want to create key indicators. Yeah, it's a metrics visualization only, so that it helps people to find out issues early and often. It helps them in making decisions, and we want to put that information in front of them. So that's the whole idea of creating a dashboard. So say you want to report to your management. Yeah, you have 10 reports, but rather than and you understand that management may not be able to analyze all the 10 reports because of their short allocated time for your project thing. Maybe you have some key performance indicators agreed upon, and if you give them a small information, maybe 5-6 line information alone, or a one pager information alone where everything is summarized, and that helps them in knowing what is working, as well as that helps them in guiding you, supporting you. That's a dashboard, maybe done on the paper or maybe done on the tool. So it's a compression of lot of ideas into an actionable thing for a quick presentation and decision making. Yeah, that's the intent. Okay, what could be the achievement of agile coach apart from satisfactory coaching? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I am coming there. So we are going one by one. So we have few questions. So what could be achievement of agile coach? I think in a simple word, what is your service to the team and the organization? Yeah. What is your like, what is your role? How do you add value? Once I understand how do I add value, I probably have some mechanism, maybe not very scientific mechanism, but how do I know I am adding value? So if, for example, I am running this session and I assume that I am adding value by giving people so many advices and I am delighting their life and changing their world. If I assume all this, I am not assuming all this, but if I assume that, so now how do I measure if I am doing it? Yeah. So do I have a feedback loop? Do I have a mechanism to see that whatever I am doing, is it making a contribution? Now, on the same line, we can say that, okay, what as a Scrum Master, what value you are adding? How do you make your team productive? How do you help your stakeholder having a clear information, common information, alignment, resolution of conflict, movement of achieving the value? Yeah. So similarly, the agile coach may also be helping by way of enabling team move forward, enabling organization to facilitate change, enabling organization to identify right tools and techniques, helping the scrum masters to learn, grow so that they become better leader. If you think that's your roles and responsibility, then the second question will come, how do you know that you are meeting or doing that at some extent? And once you know it, you can find out how possibly I can change it, improve it, or what kind of modification I should do. So that's the way of learning, reflection, and sometimes you have an energy to invest there. Sometimes you are happy because you believe I am doing what is possibly best of my ability I can do. So that's a both way, but there will be always a scope of doing something differently. So that's it. Yeah. So you can identify your own areas, usually the impact on the team, impact on the overall organization, the removal of the barriers in the flow, like making the flow process smooth, providing right consulting and advices, all helps us in knowing how the coach is doing the work. Okay, so we move some good source for learning Jira. Yeah, so we have our Jira videos. Atlassian has huge content on Jira on the internet. If you search anything, you get it. Provided you have an access to Jira, we have a video which tells you how can you get a free access to Jira up to 10 users. And yeah, so that's something you can focus on. Okay, we run trainings on Jira as well, but yeah, we are Atlassian partner as well. So yeah. Now, can you please explain the difference between SLA and contract? Yeah, there's a PMP question, yeah, in a way. So I just clarify, I'm speaking in the context of PMP, not generically. So in a PMP space, contract is a bigger term. It could be of any type, any agreement which binds us to do something. I agree to do something and you agree to pay for it. Yeah, so that's a contract. That's a handshake we have done, and that's we have to meet. Now, inside that contract, there could be deliverable, there could be delivery of service, there could be various items. Many times when the contract or the work is associated with services, like you report something and that thing has to be resolved. So there are quick, small services happening. Then many times the response time or the ability to handle that particular thing in a given time is also elaborated a little bit more specifically in detail, which is called service level agreement. So you may have like, okay, such kind of services needs to be delivered within 24 hours in this particular manner at this particular space. And if we don't do that, there are some consequences related to it. And that is your service level agreements. Yeah, from a PMP space, this much knowledge is good enough. When you get into some service delivery project, I think you will end up knowing a lot about service level agreements. Okay, if on co-location changes, the product owner promised time for attending planning and refinement, but not able to make the time as before co-location, how to deal with this type of situation? So in a experience, you will find a problem with stakeholder engagement and stakeholder commitment. So you have product owner or any stakeholder in a generic word. I'm just using generic rather than only focusing on Scrum or product owner thing only. You have to have a review, you need to have refinement, you need to have a planning, you need to have some analysis. And the stakeholders who were easily available before, but because of whatever reasons, they are becoming less and less available, what do you do? So in our project management term, we can say that, yeah, we need to continuously keep doing stakeholder assessment and identify what changes are happening in our stakeholder space and how do we move forward. Now, if this person is my team member, then I have a little different approach. If this person is beyond my control, then I have a little different engagement plan and strategy. So based on the situation at hand, I need to find out how can I resolve it, depending upon the situation. Now, one of the possible way is to quantify or have some mechanism of what is an impact of change in the engagement, how the absence in a particular meeting of a particular person resulting into rework, lack of clarity, lack of focus in your team, which is resulting into losing of organization money and resources. And you can say, oh, we are losing this much, we are doing this much rework because of a possible reason is engagement is going down. How can we fix that? So if I need to talk to the person, I better be clear about the facts rather than saying, oh, you are not doing it, that's why we are happening here. We can say that this is the situation. We have these kind of new surprises coming in. They could have been avoided if we have studied about them during our refinement process. Looks like our refinement quality is going down. How can we solve it? Yeah. So maybe the person tells, now it is no more possible for me to come in, but I will arrange someone who can do that. That's a possible thing. I'm not saying that's the only thing. Or the person understand, because of change in all these things, I think we need to change our refinement approach. Rather than doing a 1-2 hours meeting, probably we need to do something on Confluence, yeah, rather than on meeting. And Scrum is okay about refinement get done on some shared space rather than just doing a meeting about it. So maybe since we are working in a different mode, so probably we need to do a refinement also in a different mode, which allows people to do a little bit of asynchronous work. And then if you see a need of it, then synchronizing at some point in time. So that's you can focus on. Okay. Now, does the procurement come from business side? So in general, you can say the PMP exam. So the leading of procurement work will probably be done from your sourcing or legal section or a procurement department. Depends upon your organization. Sometimes they are called procurement people. Sometimes they are called legal. Sometimes they are called something else. So you need to say, okay, who are those people? And they are the one who are leading the negotiation and taking the work forward. So you can talk with them. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh, so in respect of sprint goal, if some production bug or some implementation or spike to be worked upon comes in, then it has a highest priority, but there may not be aligned with our sprint goal. What would like to seek your suggestion here? So we need to see the overall context and frequency. Now, many time when the teams are working in these kind of situations, when things are also running live, they start allocating some capacity to take care of ongoing deployments or ongoing uses. So if that is not the case, again, sometime it may go beyond your allocation also, and that will create a disruption in your whole process. That's obvious. But if you have some pattern, then you can start allocating some time and energy for it. So you need to discuss with your stakeholders that, okay, how do we handle this situation? Because if they are more focused on predictability, then they will say, maybe we need to have an order and we still want sprint goals to be met. Yeah. So you will say, okay, in that case, we need to keep some capacity reserve for our such kind of unforeseen things, because you are very particular about sprint goals or a sprint items. But there are stakeholders who may say, okay, it's okay if you don't meet a sprint goal, but we need to focus on delivering business value. We will understand when we have a situation, then you may plan those things, and then you move forward. Yeah, so that's something you can focus on. Yeah. Okay. Now, can we discuss about capacity management and how it can help organization? How do you measure? What is the tool available? So you do have some plugins available which helps you in doing some amount of capacity planning. But I think rather than focusing on tool, when we are working on something, so I usually talk about you have a work which is like a material which is lying at a one place. That's your backlog. So your material is lying in a backlog, and you need to take this material to a done. Yeah. So there is a place called done, and where there is an increment, you need to take this material from backlog to done. Yeah, that's a material, just metaphorically. Now, how much material you can take from this point to that point? What is your truck capacity? It's not necessary that you will full the whole capacity. Sometimes you go half the capacity also. I hope you will not take more than your capacity, but you need to have some understanding that, okay, what is my truck capacity? The vehicle I am using, what is their capacity? So when I have that understanding, that helps me in figuring out, if my material is this much and I want to take it there, how many rounds my truck has to put, or how many trucks I need in order to move there. So in order to achieve some amount of that kind of planning, organization wants to have some mechanism of knowing the truck, yeah, knowing the vehicle, and that's a capacity planning. Most of the time, it is linked with the amount of productive time available, the resources available, the infrastructure resources available, people available, people's time available, and their competencies of doing things. So those all comes into the picture in order to do that. Okay, this is what we have, and then we will see how well we are using our capacity. Are we working 60%, 40%, 30%, or 100%? That's what I can say about capacity planning, irrespective of agile project management or whatever, because this is something we end up using at most of the places. Yeah. Okay. Is it necessary for or important to stakeholder for backlog refinement sessions or sprint planning? And then I think there is a related question: is it possible to do a backlog refinement just by putting things on the Confluence rather than doing a meeting? Yeah. So that's the thing. Now, it's all depend upon what value we are getting from participation, and maybe we need to use combination of both. Now, Scrum has their rules, which is saying, yeah, we need to invite respective stakeholder for backlog refinement, not specifically mentioning who all those respective stakeholder. And for sprint planning, the team can invite whoever expert they want them in the team. That's a Scrum rule. But the Scrum rule will remain in the book. You need to see your people and who are the things, who are the individuals. If you miss them, what are you losing? So the idea here is, if you are running weekly sprints and you are delivering things directly to the stakeholders, they are using it, then your feedback cycle is very small. Then you may not worry so many people attending backlog refinement meeting, because they anyway give you the feedback because they have things in their hand very frequently. But if your feedback cycle is little long, like you might be working 2 weeks sprint, but your stakeholders are only getting releases once in a month or once in a 2 months, then you need to be very careful about backlog refinement and engagement, and participation in a product or a reviews meetings as well, because you want to take a feedback. So when you make a business releases, the feedbacks are going to happen because whoever is relevant is using it. Yeah, so probably I don't care that much. Yeah, because my cycle is small, and if they don't like something, we'll change it. Yeah, we are just there. So we need to identify the gap between discussion and delivery. And if the gap between discussion and delivery is big, we need more clear, more concrete discussions. Yeah. So based on that, we can find out who should participate, what is our cost of wrong backlog refinement. If we end up prioritizing things wrong, what loss they are creating on our whole process, that will drive who all can help us in mitigating that wrong prioritization. And those are the individuals who should be part of our discussion. Maybe a named individuals, an organization should identify them. Your Scrum guide can't do it for you. They can just say product owner should take care of it. Okay, so hopefully that is there. Now, for a Scrum Master, what are the mandatory meeting need to be involved if there are conflict with other teams meeting and the Scrum Master handling multiple teams? So the idea here is, the Scrum Master is expected to ensure these events meetings are happening, and they are happening at a right value. Yeah, so the right objective and values are getting achieved. Once that is done, your job is over. So it's not necessary that I have to run the meeting. I need to ensure the meeting is productive. Now, how can I ensure that? Probably I have developed facilitation skill in my team. They know what to do, how to do. Yeah, if they are running it, it's good. Yeah, they are not dependent on a Scrum Master to run a meeting and call a call. Yeah. So usually I see many people start using it. Yeah, especially the daily Scrum. I see frequently the Scrum Master start delegating or enabling team to take care of daily stand-up themselves, rather than Scrum Master pushing into it. Yeah, so I see that happening as a first thing. And they have their own mechanism of ensuring that, yes, the meeting is on path, and we are definitely inspecting and adapting on a daily basis. So focus on the outcome you want to achieve from a given event. And if you can achieve that outcome without your presence, I think that's the best thing. That's the best thing to happen. So you need to just find out, how can I enable that? And I think nobody will mind, provided the outcomes are coming. They will not say why you were not in that meeting. And that's the challenge many times, because you need to grow your team, you need to grow your people to reach to that particular stage. Yeah. Okay, so what is the use of Confluence over Jira? So Confluence is all about like ongoing discussions, your SharePoint kind of stuff. So it's like you can create pages. It's a place where we can interactively collaborate on an idea, document, graph, and we can have chain of our conversation. So say if I have to create an idea, I don't know when the task will come. I'm just creating an idea and I want people to collaborate on it. We are jointly updating the blog page kind of. And once the blog page is ready, we will move forward for doing it. Yeah, we can create a task around that also. So Confluence is for us is a very powerful tool. We use it for collaborating inside the team. And many times we spend together on Confluence before the task starts coming in. So in a previous conversation, we were talking about big ideas. So maybe the epic comes into the picture in the Confluence first, you discuss them there, and then you have a refined ideas coming in. And then you can say, okay, now we understand this picture. Let's take it to the product backlog and create stories out of it. And you can create direct tasks or issues from there. And that's the use of Confluence. Yeah. So it's little high level discussion space, which can be used. Okay, So if there are some follow-up question, I hope I am not missing something here. What is the role of a scrum master in release? Yeah, I think the release is something is not defined in Scrum guide, so we don't know. Yeah, so it all depends upon your organization, because Scrum guide cannot tell you that you need to do these things in your releases. So the idea here is Scrum master is facilitating the value delivery so that value is not getting blocked. I need to ensure flow of value delivery, and if somewhere it is getting blocked, I do a problem solving to resolve it. Now, release is one of the important event which ensures that value is getting released to the respective stakeholders users. So I need to ensure it is happening frequently. I need to ensure if there are some blockers which are slowing it down, I make the team reflect on it so that we can make the process smooth and releasing business value faster, frequent, without much of waste is my role as a leader, scrum master, project manager, whatever you call it, because that's what you do. Now, what exactly set of activities you do in order to achieve that will depend upon your organization descriptions and all. It may involve sometime doing a lot of documentation from your side so that the sign off on releases can be taken care. It might involve just ensuring that we have automation and other things in place, and all the right information is available to the right stakeholders so that they are willing to take the release frequent, and that's how we can focus on. Yeah. Okay, so I had my SUs to renew my CSM certificate. Please guide me other way to do the same. So see, if you just want an SU, it's a straightforward process. You watch videos, you explore Agile and Scrum, and you do it. Yeah, that's something you can focus on. Yeah, is a good idea. But if you do any Scrum Alliance program, say like you do CSPO after CSM, or you do Advanced Scrum Master after doing CSM, then your previous CSM also get renewed. So the Scrum Alliance is hoping that every 2 years you will learn something from Scrum Alliance, and that way you and then you go to the upper one so that your previous certificates will keep getting renewed. So say I did CSM, I do ACSM, then I do CSPSM, then I do CTC at some point in time, and that's how you can keep renewing it. So your choice, you can report the 20 SUs, pay the $100 and renew it, or you can do directly to the Scrum Alliance, or you can do some advanced certification from Scrum Alliance, and that can help you in renewing it. Okay. Okay, so we have to see what kind of process improvement can be visualized at a retrospective meeting. Simple thing is that you can improve your definition of done in a retrospective meeting. That's you can definitely figure out. You can do some kind of root cause analysis in your based on your defect or issues information, and you might change some of the working agreement you have, the some of your coding practices, testing practices, designing practices, to ensure that you get less and less such kind of issues. You may have yeah, so that's the whole thing. So there's, and you can put these ideas at a place, you can vote them, and so these all are possible process improvements you can do. Now, epics, product backlog, user stories in bite size, MVP, sprint plan. So these all things are not necessarily to be in a flow. Yeah, that's thing. So, and it depends upon what framework we are talking. So SAFe has their own requirement model, but the Scrum has no requirement model. It is something your requirement model. So SAFe does talks about they have a business level epics, which are getting diluted, further elaborated in a features, and then features are getting splitted into user stories and incrementally developed. That's a SAFe requirement model. But generic agile way of working, you have a product backlog and everything comes into it. Yeah. So you can say multiple product backlog items. Some items are big, you call them epic. Some items are small, you call them stories, which can get developed in a one sprint. Collection of these items may help you to make your first MVP, second releases going forward, and you reach to those releases by way of doing continuous sprints. Yeah, so little bit of flow probably we need to see. So will you agree to do a Scrum ceremony if the entire product can be delivered within a week to the stakeholder? Depends. If they have a value, why should they do it if the entire product has to be delivered? So in general, when you say a weekly delivery, in general, you are not expecting the 1 week delivery is the final delivery. You expect that you have a, say, running website, you are delivering things, and you keep delivering things, and website keep running. Yeah. So if you have that, you may say that we have a weekly sprints, and I have personally seen many organizations, many travel development organizations where I have consulted to, that they have a Wednesday release happening, they plan their work for a week, whatever gets done, they put it to their website, their customer starts using it. Yeah, so that's the thing which you can use, and they may get a value of collaborating in a Scrum mode. So that's possible. If your whole idea itself is a 1 week idea, then the whole Scrum process is useless for you, because the idea of Scrum is inspect and adapt. Yeah. So you are not thinking of delivering the entire product. You are expecting that we don't know what has to be delivered, even in a 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, and or a 1 year. And that's why we need to learn from it. If my first week release is the final release, then there is a waterfall. Yeah. You need to do a waterfall rather than Scrum, because that's the job is over. Okay, so how to read a sprint chart? We need to see a specific chart. Maybe you want to mention that. Yeah, that we can say. Okay, is it fine if we have a scheduled bi-weekly meetings, one refinement and planning with the stakeholder if the team is well organized? So these things are very difficult to be generalized. Answer is yes, definitely yes. If the answer is no, you will come to know. So are you getting some consequences of this meeting frequency? Maybe if it is too much, the stakeholders are not showing up. Yeah, they say, oh no, why we just told them last time and they are asking again, probably. If it's too late, then maybe in a week's time, a lot of like ad hoc discussion has been and decision has been made, and people were not available, but you have to take the call. So if the duration is too far, the ad hoc decision making will come. If the decision is too close, the people will lose interest in attending it and participation will go down. So depending upon the variability, the engagement and commitment of my stakeholder and my team, I need to come up with these cadences or frequencies. And sometimes these are the same thing which also influences your sprint frequency, yeah, or a sprint cadence. So we need to see what is good enough for taking things forward. Okay, so what do you do if the PO is not available? Is there any difference between business analyst and Scrum Master? Is it important to Scrum Master have a functional knowledge of the project? So see, the Scrum guide tells you somebody's PO, but we need to see our team. Yeah. So what is expected from a particular role is identification of requirement. Now the answer is, if I don't know what I have to work on, how do I move forward? You need to find a solution for it. Now, do you have a capable guy who can tell you what we should work on and stakeholder can trust it? Then go with it. You may call that person business analyst, or you may call the person product owner. That's the person, that's the product owner for you. But if you don't have anyone and people are doing something and stakeholders are rejecting it, then we are in a chaotic stage. So we need to identify who is the person who can help us to understand the requirement and their priorities. Yeah, that's the whole idea of your product owner. So that's a role. Again, we need to see in our team who is that person or individual who is helping us in achieving that. Okay, so the product backlog needs to be splitted to the user stories. So we are in the product backlog has a product backlog items. Yeah, so product backlog, you can assume it as a list, and this list has multiple line items. Some of the line items which are small are called user stories because they can get developed in a one iteration. Some of the line items which are big may be called something else, maybe called feature, maybe called epic, depending upon which language your teams and organization is using. We are expected to publish a blog which can help you a little bit more in a Monday timeline. So probably you can get a little bit more idea on user story space if that is confusing between user story and product backlog. Yeah. So how frequently the definition of done needs to be changed? Till the time it will be changed frequently till the time there is a gap between your definition of done and definition of release. Yeah. So you need to reduce that gap so that your definition of done can become equivalent to definition or a work which needs to be given to the stakeholder. Now, once you reach to a definition of release and that becomes your definition of done, then maybe some business perspective or technological things changes, new compliance things comes in, then only your probably definition of done will get changed. So if you are in an initial stage and your definition of done is very far from product release, then the sooner you change it and bring it to the release, the sooner it will be good for you as well as for everyone else, because you don't have to change it afterwards that frequently, because that's the definition of done which is needed for releasing the product. Yeah. Okay, I think final question. So definition of release in a way, say you have a work item which you completed, that's your definition of done. Can you give this completed item to your end user? Yeah, or you will say I have some gap which I need to fix before I give to the end user. So if your definition of done is with this gap, for example, it is only till A place, but the B place is not going, then there is a delta, which is an undone work, which is not equal to something which can go to business releases. So if you remove that delta, then you are good. Yeah, that's then your definition of done is near to the business uses. Yeah, so that's the word I was using, definition of release, but you can say that that's something which makes your product increment ready for business uses. Yeah, so hopefully these things, two things relate here. Okay, so what are the necessary chart or metrics you can suggest? Do you have a mail format which can be sent for a sprint closer? So usually you have it in your organization space, depending upon the type of contract, the type of priorities you have. Say, for example, if you are a service company and you are working for client, your matrices will be dependent on what kind of billing and contracting you have. If they are contracting you on the basis of number of hours spent, your metrics will include hours, yeah, whatever it is. So depending upon your contract, depending upon the environment or organization philosophy about your work, they will have some set of matrices. What is a matrices? They help us in knowing where do we stand and what needs to be changed so that we have a common direction. So usually the weekly reports or the summarization talks about what has been achieved, what has been missed. Yeah, so you talk about the progress made, the challenges faced, open issues, risks, and some of the management decision or support you need. Yeah, so usually these 4-5 elements are the key dashboard in a way, which needs to be presented to the stakeholder. Exact format, exact content, I think you can come up with based on what your stakeholder needs. In a project management space, we will say, this is your communication management plan. You need to come up with which all communication will be sent to whom, what all information will go, what will be the content of that communication, who will send it, who will validate it, and how do you know that you have sent it? You know, how do you track that, okay, we have a agreement on sending this weekly report, are we really sending it? So maybe in an agile word, we don't want to use a word communication management plan, but yeah, if you are working in a service organization, even in the agile space, maybe formally or informally, you need to have some agreement on your communication planning. Great. So great, guys. I think we are done with our 1 hour. Thank you for participation and bringing a lot of interesting ideas here on the session. Yeah, the session will be available in the recorded format on YouTube as soon as we finish it. Nowadays, we also started summarizing these questions and putting them into a blog format. So we should have a blog ready in next 2-3 days as well. Sometimes it helps you to do a text search easily than the video search. Sometimes video becomes a little big. That's an improvement which we have done based on what we think. Are we adding value, or is it enough, or we can do something more about it, which will be valued by our stakeholder, which are you. Yeah, so we are making our own judgment and monitoring the KPIs of your uses. Yeah, that's how we probably can see and adapt to it. Yeah, so that's the thing which we also spoke when we were talking about agile coaching and coach feedback. So thank you everyone for your participation. See you on the second Friday of the next month, yeah, the December month, and stay in touch. You can connect with us on Instagram as well. We do a weekly Instagram live also nowadays. Bye for now.